Today I learned there is something worse than getting sex education from your parents. It's getting sex education from PragerU. Mommy? So gender is just a social construct, and believing in God is a crutch. When you mix them together and give them a whirl, what do you got? Atheist girl! So, PragerU has a new video out called Sex Matters, and I thought it would be good to watch a little bit of it and respond. So how about we get to that?
Have you ever pushed a beach ball underwater? What happens? It pops right back up.
Why yes! The beach ball goes to the top of the water. Now, do you want me to give you a slip so you can go get a piece of candy from the teacher? Good. Go along now. This is Sean McDowell. He is a BIOLA University teacher. That is short for Bible Institute of Los Angeles. And no, I know what you're thinking, yeah, this could be like Kent Hovine's college. No, it's an actual accredited college, and it isn't at the bottom of the ranking, so it's a valid institution. But I will note that his degree is in theology and in philosophy. So unless we see any other certifications, we can't say that he talks as authority about biology and physics.
Because of its nature, a beach ball will not stay submerged. The same is true for men and women. Each has a distinct nature that will always rise to the surface.
But hold on for a moment, you got some mistakes here. I will give you credit, you're using because of its nature in the correct way. According to Collins Dictionary, by its nature, if you say that something has a particular characteristic by its nature or by its very nature, you mean that things of that type always have had that characteristic. But you are applying that characteristic towards two different fields of study and towards two different types of reactions. If I were to say that water, when poured into a container, will be level, and that a ball will float to the top of water, I am talking about physics, and I am talking about to the same kind of reaction, physics, and the same type of subject. But you are not talking about physics and physics. You're comparing physics with biology, and I believe that's considered what's called a category error. It's been a long time since college for me, maybe not as long for you, because you go to college every day, but I believe that is a category error. But don't worry, we're going to help you. In your comparison, when you're comparing the beach ball coming up and humans react in a certain way, you're sort of implying that human biology and their sociological processes have the same reliability as a beach ball when it's put underwater, but they don't.
Simply put, men and women are different. They look different. They have different body parts, different biology, different hormones. They express emotions differently. They have different needs and desires.
Human beings have the same hormones whether a male or female or something in between. We just have different levels. We do have some different parts, but they're not as different as you would think. Some of them even began as each other in the womb. We do look differently at times, and we can accentuate that by how we dress and how we do our hair. But we do have cases where in clothing one gender looks like the other. By the way, have you seen me? Not bad, huh?
Now, if you told that to your great-grandmother who never went to college, never used an iPhone, never used social media...
I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you in the middle of an idea, but you sort of are mixing things up again. An iPhone and social media are ways to transmit information to other people and do not by themselves work towards educating an individual. In fact, we saw during the last election how both could be used to miseducate people. So I can see why you would put those together. But college is a place where you go to study and learn more about subjects. You may disagree with what they teach, but colleges do try to teach with resources and researched facts. Wait a second. You work at a college. You should know that. Are you saying that the students at BIOLA aren't educated after they graduate?
Now, if you told that to your great-grandmother, she would have asked, "Why are you telling me something so obvious?"
If I were to talk to my great-grandmother, she'd probably slap me for being in a woman's clothing, but other than that, If I were to tell her that black people were lazy and should be controlled by white people, she'd be saying the exact same thing as your great-grandma. It's a very good thing that we have learned since then and have institutes to help us learn and teach this information.
But if you said the same thing to a graduate student in sociology or anthropology, let alone gender studies, they'd say you were wrong.
I don't believe they would put it as bluntly, and they would probably try to work with you with what you are wrong in. Why they believe what they do, and the research and studies to help back up their beliefs. But yeah, I'm sure my great-grandmother, with her racism and her beliefs that a black cat would cause bad luck, are so much better than college and education.
They'd say you were wrong. Men and women are basically the same, the grad student would say. Sexuality exists on a spectrum. It's determined by people's internal feelings.
You do know that sexuality is not a gender. Sexuality is who you are interested in going to bed with, or even going to bed by yourself. You are saying sexuality is not a spectrum? But have you heard of the Kinsey scale? I think even your great-grandmother did. It came out in 1948, and the work and theories behind it have been refined ever since. But I'm getting the idea you're really not talking about the sexuality spectrum, but instead you're meaning gender. And gender is a spectrum. And can I tell you how badly it reflects on your level of research in the subject that you have mixed these two up? I've got some more information for you. It's a little bit on the lower level, so you should be able to follow it. It's Bill Nye, and I've included it in the links below. If you watch and understand this and want to learn a little bit more, please go ahead and give me a call. I'll be happy to help you.
Between Great Granny and the Gender Studies PhD, I'm going with Granny and her common sense.
Do you know who doesn't rely on common sense? Scientists. Science, instead of using common sense, does research and then tests what it believes, because often common sense is not the right way. I mean, who would have thought that using dirty mold would kill bacteria? It's not very common sense there, is it? And because again you seem not to have done your research, here is another entry-level article on ways that common sense can fail. I try to be good and give you something fun to read. It's cracked.com. And after you read that, I have another article from Psychology Today that's a little more in-depth so you can learn even more. I hope you enjoy them.
You can push the beach ball underwater, but not for long. New York pediatrician George Lazarus tells the story of a couple who didn't want their young daughter to conform to the usual pink and blue stereotype. So, they bought her a set of toy trucks. The father went to her room to check on her, and she told him to be quiet. The trucks were sleeping. A similar story about his twin daughters pretending their daddy truck was carrying the baby truck was told by the former president of Harvard University, Lawrence Summers.
Nice story. I heard that somewhere else too. I can't remember who I heard it from, but it wasn't from George. So I decided to do some searching. There were a lot of George Lazaruses in New York, and I am unable to determine which one said this story. The closest I could find was a source in a book called Why Men Never Remember and Women Never Forget by Mariana J. Legato. And she states this was a story told to her by George. I don't know the qualifications of George, whether he meant this as a condition that applies to all humans, or if he has read or done any studies to see if this was a result of societal pressures or just simply something his kid was into. And let's talk about Lawrence Summers. He is an economist. He seems to be a pretty good one. Clinton thought so. But he isn't a biologist, and his talking about a personal story with his kids is not scientific research. And it's not necessarily in his field of study.
Believing delusions makes people say and do foolish, self-destructive things.
He doesn't quite come out and say it, but what he's trying to tell you is that being trans is a foolish, self-destructive thing. It's better to go back into the closet and kill yourself.
If men and women are basically the same, they want the same things from sex, right? But this isn't true. Women tend to be far more selective about partners with whom they choose to be intimate. That's female nature.
I'm really sorry. I know I'm still trying to get used to being a woman, out and about. So I know I'm supposed to sit down and just let the men talk, but I need to interrupt just one more thing. You're saying that women are more selective than men because that's how women are. But you're ignoring quite a few things. One, if you want to talk about biology, let's go ahead. Let's assume for a minute that the world is as you want it and there are no trans people. Crap. And that everyone is straight. Double crap. Can you think of a biological reason a woman might be selective other than just that's how they are? Men don't end up with babies out of having sex. A woman might, and thus she has to be a little bit more careful of who she sleeps with, and might be more selective because of that. Number two, women live in a society that, while it is changing, still seems to say that men can sleep with as many people as they want, and that's awesome. Women can't. And this pressure on them does sometimes influence how picky they are. I mean, if you're going to get shamed for having sex with 6 men, then you might want to just pick one so you don't get shamed, and if you're only going to do one, you might want to pick the one that's the best. And 3, we are raised since childhood to believe and accept that men are more sexual, and parents often enforce rules such as this, leading to women growing up with that thought. And just don't take my word for it. I found another article I'm going to give you from Psychology Today, which shows that women can be as aggressive as men when it comes to picking partners.
Once, this was considered common sense. Nobody had to go to graduate school or do an academic study to figure it out.
Do I really need the whole spiel again about why colleges are useful for learning things, and how common sense is not always the right option or correct thinking?
We're trying to push the beach ball underwater.
Can we forget about your beach ball already? It's a failed analogy.
Today, male and female college students who, 50 years ago, lived in separate buildings and had supervised curfews now share the same dorm rooms and even the same bathrooms.
They're sharing bathrooms. But that means all the little hairs when men shave their face and it falls in the sink and they never clean it up, women are going to have to mess with that. Oh, you're right. PragerU, you are perfectly right. Let's keep men and women in separate bathrooms.
And sex, well, it's just another form of college entertainment. It means nothing and has no consequences, emotionally, psychologically, or physically.
Sex can be without emotion, but casual sex can also have emotion. And also, sometimes people just want a bone, and it doesn't have to be this deep connection with emotional attachments and deep psychological understanding of each other. It's been a long time for me. Besides, you already said the men and women are sharing the bathroom, and do we really want to have to accidentally find a men's fun time sock because we are banning sex? It's really stiff, really crunchy. Ugh. You also talk about physically. Are you saying sex has to have a physical consequence? Are you saying that we need to go have sex without any protection? And so, because of that, we should only do it during marriage?
If sex doesn't mean anything, why would any woman feel violated by an uninvited touch?
Fuck you very, very much, because we hate what you do and we hate your whole crew, so please don't stay in touch. Consensual sex is not a big thing. Being touched by someone you don't want to is still a big matter, even when people have consensual sex. I'm assuming because of the school you teach at that you're a Christian, and probably like all good Christians you give 10% to the church, right? Do we need to check with your church on that one? Okay, so you're consensually giving away 10% of your income. So you wouldn't mind if I just reached into your pocket and took a couple more dollars out, right? No? Do you see why I and other people might have an issue with what you just said?
Do you think a man whose leg is touched by a woman he doesn't know feels as violated as a woman does when her leg is touched by a man she doesn't know?
Yes. So here, I get to use your bigotry against you. I'm a trans woman, but according to you, I'm a confused man. I should have the men's needs and men's careless attitude towards sex. One night, well before I came out, I was working in a grocery store. I was the overnight cashier and working there by myself. And I had a young lady come in. I was probably 19, she was probably the same age. But we had a policy that if you looked under 28, you had to have an ID to buy cigarettes. And so I refused her service. Before I could stop her, she came around my register and put her hands all over me. Now, it didn't go underneath the clothes and it did stay above the belt. I quickly pushed her away and sold her the cigarettes, and as soon as she left, I started crying. I don't like talking about it, and it still bothers me when I think about it. And you know what made it even worse? Being told by asshats like you that as a guy, I should want it. I wasn't sure what I was. I knew I still hadn't just figured out that I was trans, so I was trying to do everything as a man should. And I was repulsed by being touched by someone I didn't know that I didn't want to happen.
If sex doesn't mean anything, why did Jennifer Lawrence say to The Hollywood Reporter, after filming an intimate scene with her co-star Chris Pratt in the movie Passengers, "I knew it was my job, but I couldn't tell my stomach that. That was the most vulnerable I've ever been." She felt vulnerable in that scene, but not in others, because she knows even acting out in a movie scene, sex is a big deal.
I haven't seen that sex scene. Maybe I should go check it out for research purposes. It really has been a long time. One moment. Okay, so now that I've seen it, you know what? It means nothing. Her experience with sex does not mean it's the same for everyone. And we do not know if she went into this with some feelings. It was her job, but she probably put her emotions into her job. There are people who really put their emotions into their job, and it shows through when they're working. I forget what they're called again. Actors, that's it.
That's one of the many reasons it has traditionally been confined to marriage.
No, that was because there were some people who are really good at making weapons and boats, and they were influenced by a very old book with no historical integrity. They conquered other people and told them that they had to give up whatever sex practices they had. And boy, there were a lot of them. And then the missionaries came out and told them you can only do missionary after you're married. And that's why it's like this today.
And why experience and research shows that sex within marriage is more satisfying emotionally, psychologically, and physically, not to mention spiritually.
What research?
So, trust Granny, trust common sense, and remember the beach ball.
No, we're done with the beach ball. Give me that thing. Now go sit in a corner and think about what you've done. There is a lot to chew over in this video, and it's very cringeworthy, and it makes you almost want to laugh. But it's not funny. It's time for people to stop letting a 2,000-year-old piece of paper tell them how they should run their lives. and it's time for us to stop letting them tell us how we should run our lives. One final thing I wanted to point out about their video was this.
To help keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.
Most people at the end, when they have a Patreon or something, they'll say, you know, like and subscribe. Please, if you really like what I do, throw some bucks into my account, you know, help me do what I'm doing. That's not what they say. They're saying, if you want to keep these videos free, pay us. So they are implying that their videos have value other than just being propaganda on YouTube. And if you watch what they say about capitalism on other videos, this does not make sense. They make it pretty clear that the best way for capitalism to work is to charge as much as you can for a product and to maximize profit. If they thought they could make money from these videos and they followed their own advice, instead of giving this out for free, they would be charging people for this video. Just something to think about their whole channel. Thank you all for coming and watching my channel today. I hope you like and subscribe, and be sure to ding 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 ring that bell so that you know when I put up my next video. I'm sorry that this one was a little bit late. I have a little bit of an update I do want to make before we close out this video. I have been doing a Kent Hovind series, and I've done 2 parts of it, and there's probably about 3 more left. And I've decided not to do them. I started out very pissed off at Kent Hovind. If you look at some of my other videos, you can see the reasons why. But the main one is that he helped my mom die from cancer. And the first 2 videos and doing all the research and stuff I did helped me work through that anger. And I really don't feel like giving this asshat another platform to show what he thinks. If people really want to see the rest of the stuff, please let me know. But at this moment, I'm okay with just ignoring him and letting him be forgotten. I hope you all have a great day, and thank you.